The bill for my mother's 60th birthday was $840. I know the exact amount because I had called the restaurant 3 days earlier to put a credit card on file. I wanted the evening to be perfect. I ordered the vintage Cabernet she liked, the 3-tiered seafood tower, and the custom cake from the bakery across town. My sister, Sophie, took the credit for picking the venue. My brother, Mark, took the credit for driving Mom there in the SUV that I paid the insurance on. I sat at the far end of the table, smiling, eating a lobster tail I had bought but hadn't tasted. Then came the speeches. Mom stood up, flushed with wine and attention. She tapped her glass with a silver fork. "I just want to thank my babies," she announced, beaming at the table. "To Sophie, who is planning the wedding of the century. To Mark, who is finally finding himself." She paused, turning her gaze toward me. Her smile widened, but her eyes didn't crinkle. "And to Chloe," she said, raising her glass higher. "Our little golden goose, the family wallet. Seriously, what would we do without her picking up the tab for our lives?" The table erupted. My aunt cackled. Sophie choked on her water, laughing. Mark slapped the table. "True that!" he yelled. They weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at the absurdity of my existence, a tool they used to build their comfort. I sat perfectly still, my hand gripping the stem of my wine glass. In that moment, amidst the roar of their amusement, the love I had been trying to buy for 4 years finally ran out. Before I tell you how I shut down their entire lives in 43 minutes, I have a question. Have you ever been the one giving everything while receiving nothing? Drop a yes in the comments if you know that pain. I read every single story. To understand why I snapped, you have to understand how the trap was set. It wasn't malice, it was grief. My father died of a sudden stroke 4 years ago, just before Thanksgiving. He was the captain of the ship. He managed the investments, paid the bills, and kept the lights on. My mother, God love her, didn't know the login to her own bank account. She had gone from her father's house to her husband's house without ever writing a check for a utility bill. 2 weeks after the funeral, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, weeping over a pile of overdue notices. "I don't know what to do, Chloe," she sobbed, clutching a disconnect warning from the electric company. "It's all just numbers. I can't breathe." I was 28. I had just landed a position as a senior data analyst at a major fintech firm. I spoke fluent Excel. So, I did what any good daughter would do. I took the stack of papers. "I'll handle it, Mom," I said. "Just for a few months, until the probate clears and you get your footing." That was the lie that cost me nearly $200,000. I automated everything. I linked her mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, and the household credit cards to my primary checking account. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it was efficient. Here is what the Chloe subsidies looked like on a monthly basis. The mortgage on the 4-bedroom house she refused to downsize, $2,100. Utilities, gas, water, electric, high-speed internet for Mark's gaming, $650. Landscaping, because Mark had a bad back, $200. Mom's incidental credit card, groceries/Target runs, $1,200. Base total, $4,150 per month. That doesn't include the emergencies, and there were always emergencies. The furnace died in January, $3,200. The gutters fell off in April, $1,500. Sophie needed a deposit for her apartment because her credit score was trash, $2,200. I paid it all. I was making good money. My salary had climbed to $155,000 by year 3, but I was living like a college student to fund their suburban comfort. I lived in a 300-square-foot studio apartment above a noisy bakery. My view was a brick wall. I slept on a mattress I bought online for $200. I drove a 10-year-old sedan with a tape deck. I ate tuna straight from the can for dinner more nights than I care to admit. I did this because guilt is a powerful drug. Every time I thought about buying a new pair of boots or booking a weekend trip, I would hear my mother's voice trembling about how hard it was to be a widow. I felt that spending money on myself was an act of betrayal. So, I starved my own life to feed theirs. And in return, they got comfortable. They stopped grieving and started consuming. They forgot that the magic money fairy was actually their sister, eating peanut butter toast in a cold apartment so they could order steaks. The financial bleeding wasn't just about keeping a roof over my mother's head. It was about funding the delusions of my siblings. My brother Mark is 29 years old. He has a degree in philosophy that he doesn't use and a business idea that changes every 6 months. He lives in the finished basement of my mother's house, rent-free. He drives the family SUV, which I pay to insure. He eats the organic steaks I pay for. Last year, Mark decided he was going to be a crypto influencer. He needed a high-end camera and a lighting rig to look professional. He didn't ask me for the money directly. He just used the emergency credit card I had given Mom for household essentials. I saw the charge pop up on my phone. Best Buy, $1,400. When I called Mom to ask if the washing machine had broken, she lowered her voice. "Oh, honey, don't be mad. Mark needs a little help getting his career off the ground. He's going to pay us back when his channel takes off." He never paid it back. He uploaded 3 videos, got 12 views, and the camera is now gathering dust next to his unsold inventory of drop-shipped sunglasses. Another $800 charge I swallowed in 2021. Then there was Sophie. Sophie is the princess of the family. She moved back home temporarily 2 years ago to save money for her wedding, yet somehow her savings account never grew. What grew was the pile of bills on my desk. She added her cell phone to the family plan, $90 per month. She added her streaming services. She started ordering DoorDash on Mom's account because she was too stressed to cook. The real nightmare began with her engagement. Sophie got engaged to a nice guy named Todd who works in IT, but Sophie didn't want a nice wedding. She wanted a Vogue wedding. "Mom says you'll cover the deposit for the venue," Sophie told me over the phone last spring. It wasn't a question. "It's only $3,000, Chloe. We need to lock in the date." "I can't just drop $3,000, Sophie," I said, looking at my own bank account, which had dipped dangerously low after paying Mom's property taxes. "But you have a good job," Sophie whined, "and Mom really wants this for me. You don't want to upset Mom, do you? Her blood pressure has been so high lately." That was their trump card, Mom's health. Anytime I hesitated, anytime I tried to set a boundary, they weaponized my father's death and my mother's fragility. "Do you want to give Mom a heart attack?" So I paid the deposit. I paid for the bridal shower catering, $850. I paid for the custom letterpress invitations, $400. Meanwhile, I was keeping a secret that would have made them foam at the mouth. I wasn't just a data analyst anymore. I had been promoted twice. I was now the director of data strategy. My base salary was $185,000, plus bonuses. I didn't tell a soul. I knew that if they knew I was making nearly $200,000 a year, the requests would stop being requests and start being demands. They would want a new car. They would want a renovation. They would want me to pay off Mark's student loans. So, I played the role of the struggling middle child. I wore thrift store sweaters. I complained about inflation. I drove my rattling sedan to family gatherings and parked it next to Mark's pristinely detailed SUV. I let them think I was scraping by, just managing to keep the ship afloat, because I was terrified that if they knew the truth, they would pick the bones of my success clean. The breaking point was a conversation I tried to have with Mom 6 months ago. I sat her down at the kitchen table, the table I had paid to refinish, and showed her the spreadsheet. "Mom," I said gently, "we need to talk about the budget. I've spent $40,000 this year alone. You have Dad's pension. It comes in every month, $2,800. You have the $50,000 in the savings account. You need to start contributing to the groceries and the utilities." She looked at me with wide, wet eyes, trembling like a leaf. "Chloe, how can you say that? That savings is for a rainy day. I'm a widow. I'm on a fixed income. I can't start spending my safety net." "I am your safety net," I snapped, losing my patience for the first time. "And I am fraying, Mom." She started to cry, real, heavy sobs. "Your father would be so disappointed to hear you talking about money like this. Family takes care of family." I dropped it. I apologized. I went back to my studio apartment and ate instant noodles while she ordered takeout on my dime. But I kept the spreadsheet. I tracked every penny. Year 1, $48,000. Year 2, $52,000. Year 3, $56,000. Year 4, current, $36,000 and counting. Total financial impact, $192,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a master's degree. That was a trip around the world. Instead, it was Mark's camera, Sophie's wedding venue, and my mother's refusal to face reality. I had bought them a life at the cost of my own. And at that birthday dinner, when she raised a glass to the family wallet, I realized the return on my investment was zero. I didn't flip the table. I didn't throw my wine in Mark's face. I didn't even cry. I finished my lobster. I waited for the tiramisu to be served. I smiled when Sophie showed me her Pinterest board for the flower arrangements I was expected to pay for. I hugged my mother and wished her a happy 60th. Then, at 8:15 p.m., I walked out to my beat-up sedan, sat in the driver's seat, and felt a calm descend over me that was terrifying in its absolute silence. It wasn't rage. Rage is hot. Rage burns out. This was cold. This was the temperature of deep space. I drove home without turning on the radio. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, locked the door, and poured a glass of water. At 9:47 p.m., I opened my laptop. It wasn't a tantrum. It was an administrative correction. I treated it exactly like a project at work. I pulled up the spreadsheet, the one that documented the $192,000 of my life they had consumed, and I opened a new tab. Step 1, the transfer links. I logged into my primary bank portal. I navigated to external accounts. There it was, Mom's checking, ending in 4490. I clicked remove. A warning box popped up. Are you sure? This will cancel all recurring transfers. I clicked yes, without blinking. Step 2, the digital wallets. I opened Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. I changed every password. I enabled 2-factor authentication, ensuring that the next time Mark tried to request $50 for gas, he would hit a digital brick wall. I removed my credit card from the shared Amazon Prime account where Sophie had been ordering skincare products on my dime. Step 3. The auto pays. This was the nuclear option. I went to the utility company portal. Unenroll from autopay. I went to the mortgage servicer. Cancel scheduled payment. I went to the car insurance provider. Remove payment method. I went to the credit card portal for the card Mom carried. Report lost/stolen. Freeze account. It took exactly 43 minutes. At 10:30 p.m., the Chloe subsidies were officially offline. The infrastructure that held up their lives, the invisible beams and supports I had paid for with my own future, was gone. I closed my laptop. The fan whirred into silence. For the first time in 4 years, I sat on my lumpy couch and didn't worry about whether the heat would stay on in a house I didn't live in. I didn't worry about Mark's credit score. I didn't worry about Mom's grocery list. I felt lighter, physically lighter, as if gravity had released its hold on my chest. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and went to sleep. And for the first time since my father died, I didn't dream about numbers. The next morning, Thursday, was a normal workday for the rest of the world. For the Lynn family, it was the beginning of the apocalypse. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. without an alarm. I made coffee, the cheap kind I usually drank, but it tasted like victory. I drove to the office, sat at my desk, and turned my phone face down. The first tremor hit at 9:14 a.m. A text from Mom. "Chloe, I just got a weird email from the power company. It says, 'Payment method removed.' Did you get a new card?" I saw the notification on my lock screen. I didn't unlock the phone. I took a sip of water and opened my email to answer a client request. By noon, the tremors became a quake. Text from Sophie. "Hey, tried to order lunch on the Seamless account. It says card declined. Can you fix it? I'm starving." Text from Mom. "Chloe? The grocery delivery app isn't working. It's asking for a new payment method. I have a cart full of stuff. I ate my lunch, a sandwich I had made at home, in the park across from my office. The sun was shining." My phone buzzed in my bag, a muffled, desperate rhythm that I ignored. Friday was when the dam broke. At 8 a.m., the mortgage autopay attempted to clear. Because I had severed the link, the transaction bounced hard. The bank system sent an automated alert to Mom's email, the one I had set up for her but she rarely checked. Mortgage payment, $2,100, failed. NSF fee applied, $35. Current status, past due. At 10:30 a.m., Mom went to the upscale market down the street, the one where she bought $18 jars of honey and imported cheese. She filled a cart. She stood in line. She swiped the debit card that I had been funding for 4 years. Declined. She swiped it again. Declined. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it later from Sophie. Mom had to leave the cart. She had to walk out of the store past the cashier and the neighbors, red-faced and empty-handed. For a woman whose entire identity was built on appearances, this was a fate worse than death. At 1:15 p.m., Mark texted, "Dude, I'm at the Shell station. Card isn't working. I'm on fumes. Put some cash in the account. ASAP." He didn't ask what was wrong. He demanded a refill. By 5 p.m., I had 31 missed calls. I drove home, made pasta, and watched a documentary. I checked my phone once before bed. The voicemails had shifted from annoyed to frantic. Voicemail 1. Mom, 2:30 p.m. "Chloe, pick up. This is humiliating. The card didn't work. The bank is sending me alerts. What is going on?" Voicemail 2. Sophie, 4:45 p.m. Mom is freaking out. She says we've been hacked. Call us back. I turned my phone off. Saturday brought the cold. It was February in New England. The overnight low was 22 degrees. At 6:45 a.m., the furnace in my mother's 4-bedroom colonial shut down. I had canceled the scheduled maintenance plan and the fuel delivery authorization. By 10 a.m., the inside temperature of her house had dropped to 58 degrees. When I turned my phone on at noon, the screen lit up like a slot machine. 47 missed calls. 22 new texts. Sophie, the heat is off. It's freezing in here. Mark, seriously, Chloe? This isn't funny. Mom is crying. Mom, please. It's so cold. I don't know who to call. They want a credit card for the emergency service and mine isn't working. Help us. I sat in my studio apartment. My thermostat was set to 70 degrees. I was wearing a t-shirt. I held my warm mug of coffee and looked at the messages. A small, jagged part of my heart wanted to cave. That was the daughter in me, the one trained to fix, to soothe, to pay. But then I remembered the golden goose toast. I remembered the $192,000. I remembered that Mom had a savings account with $50,000 in it that she could access at any moment. She wasn't helpless. She was stubborn. She was waiting for me to break so she didn't have to touch her own hoard. I didn't break. By Sunday night, the call count hit 80. 80 times they reached out. Not once to ask how I was, not once to apologize. 80 times to ask for money, heat, and gas. I sent one text to the group chat at 9 p.m. on Sunday. I am safe. I am fine. I suggest you check your own savings accounts to handle your bills. I am no longer the administrator of this estate. Then I blocked them for 24 hours. On Monday evening, the banging started. It wasn't the police. It was Sophie. She had bypassed the broken intercom downstairs and managed to get into the hallway. When I opened the door to my apartment, she was standing there in a shearling coat that cost more than my monthly rent, her face flushed with indignation. "You blocked us!" she screamed. "Mom is a wreck. The house is freezing. How could you be so—" She stopped. She stopped because she had physically stepped inside. In the 4 years I had lived there, Sophie had never visited, not once. She always insisted we meet at Mom's house or at a bistro downtown. She had never seen the reality of my life. She looked around. Her eyes widened as they took in the 300 square feet of my existence. She saw the mattress on the floor because the bed frame wouldn't fit. She saw the single rolling rack of clothes that constituted my closet. She saw the brick wall outside the single, drafty window. She smelled the overwhelming scent of yeast from the industrial bakery downstairs. "Chloe," she whispered, the anger draining out of her voice, replaced by confusion. You live here?" "Yes," I said, leaning against the tiny kitchenette counter. "Do you want tea?" "I have instant." Sophie took a step forward, her designer boots clicking on the cheap laminate floor. She looked at the peeling paint in the corner. She looked at my laptop sitting on a TV tray because I didn't have a desk. "But," she stammered, "Mom said you were doing so well. She said you were a director. You make 6 figures." "I do," I said calmly. "I make $185,000 a year." "Then why—" She gestured vaguely at the room, at the poverty of it. "Why do you live like a grad student?" I walked over to the laptop. I woke it up and turned the screen toward her. The spreadsheet was still open. Look at column D, Sophie. She squinted at the screen. She scrolled down, her eyes darted back and forth as she read the line items. Sophie wedding deposit, Mark camera, Mom mortgage, landscaping, furnace repair, Sophie bridal shower. She scrolled until she hit the bottom right corner, the bold red number. $192,450. That is why, I said. I live in a shoebox because I bought you a wedding venue. I sleep on a mattress on the floor because I paid for Mark's camera. I eat tuna because I've been paying for Mom's steaks. Sophie slumped onto my futon. She looked physically ill. The diamond engagement ring on her finger, the one I had helped her fiancé select, caught the light from the street lamp outside. I didn't know, she whispered. Her voice was trembling. Chloe, I swear, I didn't know it was you. Mom acted like... She made it seem like it was just Dad's money, like it was endless. It wasn't endless, I said. It was me. Every time you swiped that card, you were taking hours of my life. You were taking my future. Why didn't you tell us? She looked up, tears spilling over. Why did you let us do this? I tried, I said, my voice hard. I tried to tell Mom 6 months ago. She cried. She told me family takes care of family. So I did. And you laughed at me for it. You called me a wallet. Sophie buried her face in her hands. The room was silent except for the hum of my refrigerator. For the first time, the princess wasn't demanding anything. She was sitting in the wreckage of her own ignorance, realizing that the luxury she felt entitled to had been stolen from her sister's dignity. What do we do? She asked finally, her voice small. I don't know what you do, I said, but I'm done paying for it. On Tuesday morning, my mother put on her best wool coat, the one I had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, and marched into the local bank branch. She didn't go there to apologize. She went there to speak to the manager about the system error that was ruining her life. She sat across from Mrs. Higgins, the branch manager who had known my father for decades. Mom demanded to know why the automatic family legacy transfers had ceased. She was indignant. She was the widow of Robert Lynn, and she expected service. Mrs. Higgins turned her monitor so Mom could see it. Mrs. Lynn, she said gently, peeling back the layers of my mother's denial with a single sentence. There is no family legacy transfer. There never was. Of course there is, Mom insisted, her voice trembling. The money comes in every month on the 1st. It covers the mortgage. It covers the cards. It's Robert's money. Mrs. Higgins pointed to the screen with a manicured finger. Look at the transaction source, Martha. It reads, EXTTRNSFR Chloe Lynn N. These aren't automated dividends from a trust. These are personal wire transfers from your daughter's private checking account. Mom stared at the screen. The blue light reflected in her glasses. She saw the list scrolling down the page. November 1st, $4,100 from Chloe Lynn. December 1st, $4,500 from Chloe Lynn. January 1st, $4,200 from Chloe Lynn. It's Chloe? Mom whispered. All of it? Every penny, Mrs. Higgins confirmed. For 4 years. And last Thursday, she revoked the authorization. It wasn't a bank error, Martha. She simply stopped paying your bills. Sophie told me later that Mom didn't say another word. She walked out of the bank like a ghost. She drove home to a house that was 52 degrees inside, sat in the living room wrapped in 3 blankets, and finally, for the first time, looked at her own bank statement. She saw the $50,000 in savings sitting there, untouched, pristine, safe, while I had drowned to keep her warm. The delusion broke. She couldn't pretend it was magic anymore. She couldn't pretend I was just the golden goose laying eggs for fun. She had to face the fact that she had cannibalized her own child to protect a pile of cash she didn't even need. That night, she didn't call 80 times. She didn't leave a frantic voicemail about the heat. She sent one text. I went to the bank. I saw the records. I am so sorry. I read it. I felt the relief wash over me, cool and clean. I didn't reply immediately. I let her sit in the cold a little longer. She needed to learn that sorry doesn't turn the heat back on. Payment does. We didn't meet immediately. I let them sit in the reality of their choices for 3 weeks. In those 21 days, the Lynn family underwent a forced evolution. Mom finally cracked open her sacred savings account to pay the heating bill and the mortgage arrears. Mark got a job at a warehouse packing boxes because he needed gas money. Sophie downsized her wedding plans, swapping the Vogue venue for a community center. They learned very quickly that life costs money. On a rainy Tuesday in March, I finally agreed to meet Mom. I chose the location, a busy coffee shop downtown, midway between my office and her house. Neutral ground, no home court advantage. She arrived 10 minutes early. She looked tired. The perfectly coiffed hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she wasn't wearing her usual stack of gold bracelets. She looked smaller, like a balloon that had lost a significant amount of helium. I bought my own coffee. I sat down across from her. "Chloe," she said, her voice wavering. She reached for my hand, but I kept mine wrapped around my mug. "Thank you for coming." "I have a meeting in 45 minutes, I said. "Let's keep this focused." Mom flinched at my tone, but she didn't argue. She took a breath. "I want to apologize. Properly. I went through the bank statements with Mrs. Higgins. I saw everything. The sheer volume of it. I don't know how you did it." "I did it by not having a life, Mom," I said. "I did it by eating ramen while you ate steak." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know. And I am ashamed. I got so used to being taken care of by your father that when he died, I just transferred that expectation onto you. It wasn't fair. It was cruel." It was the first honest thing she had said in 4 years. "I accept your apology," I said. "But apologies don't pay bills. So, here are the terms for moving forward." I pulled a small notepad from my bag. I had written them down because I wasn't going to leave room for interpretation. Number 1, you will live on Dad's pension. It covers the mortgage and the basics. If you want luxuries, you use your savings. You will never ask me for a utility payment again. Mom nodded. Okay. Number 2, Mark pays rent, $500 a month. If he doesn't like it, he can move out. He is a grown man, not a dependent. He's working now, Mom said quietly. He agreed to start contributing. Number 3. Sophie pays for her own wedding. If she can't afford it, she waits. She knows, Mom whispered. She canceled the florist yesterday. And number 4, I said, leaning forward, looking her dead in the eye. You will never, ever call me the family wallet, the golden goose, or an ATM again. I am your daughter. I am not a financial instrument. Mom started to cry then, soft, quiet tears. She reached across the table again, and this time, I let her take my hand. Her grip was tight, desperate. You are my daughter, she said. And I am so proud of you, not for the money, but for the backbone. Your father would have been proud too. I know, I said. Now drink your coffee. You're paying for this one. She let out a wet, startled laugh. Then she dug into her purse, pulled out her own wallet, and put $5 on the table. It was a small gesture, but it was a start. It has been 60 days since the coffee shop summit. I don't live in the shoebox above the bakery anymore. Last week, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. I bought a bed frame, solid oak, not a slat of particle board in sight. I bought art for the walls. I bought an espresso machine that costs more than my old car payments. I still drive the sedan because old habits die hard, but I'm looking at Teslas next weekend. My family is surviving. They aren't living the high life, but they are living an honest one. Mark is actually proud of his warehouse checks. Sophie's wedding will be small, intimate, and entirely paid for by her and Todd. And Mom? Mom calls me every Sunday. We talk about books, we talk about work, and we talk about the weather. We don't talk about money. I realized something important through all of this. I didn't cut them off to punish them. I cut them off to save them from their own entitlement and to save myself from resentment. For 4 years, I shrank myself down to fit into the corners of their lives. I made myself small so they could feel big. I starved my future to feed their present. But you cannot set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. Eventually, you burn to ash, and they'll still complain about the cold. I'm done being ash. It's time to be the fire. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It tells the algorithm that these stories matter. And tell me in the comments, is there someone in your life you need to set boundaries with? Type "no more ash" if you're ready to reclaim your life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.